The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into War Up on the Whitfield, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnick and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into War Up on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, recovering from the Powerade tournament from 2018. And Jeff, have you gotten your rest? Are you feeling a little bit better after what was a fun weekend?
It was definitely a fun weekend. It was just a long weekend. I mean, I didn't leave Candy McMillan High School to probably about 12:30 and then got home around 2. So, yeah, it was a long weekend, but well worth it. It's a great event, and this year was no different.
How do you compare this tournament? We're going to break it down bracket by bracket, but how would you compare this tournament overall to Powerades in the last few years?
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people have asked me that, and looking at the field, I mean, we didn't have that Blair Academy or Wyoming Seminary team there that was just absolutely dominant. We had some solid teams from outside of Pennsylvania, St. Ed's and Oak Park River Forest. Those teams that are, and even Parkersburg South, those teams finished 1, 2, and 3. But it was a still really balanced field, I think, and you didn't see a ton of blowouts. You saw some deep weights. You saw some not some deep weights. So it's comparable to years past, but I love the tournament. I don't think it really matters necessarily if you get all the big names in the nation. You get really good competition and a really good environment.
It's the depth more than anything. You have guys that are state medalists that are going 1 and 2 in this tournament.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for me personally is watching like the round of 16. The round of 16 was brutal for some guys. You know, you have state medalists, guys ranked number 1 in the state, going down in the round of 16 in the quarterfinals like it's no one's business. So the depth there is really what sets Powerade apart from any other tournament in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be, like you said, the number 1 guy at each weight class in the nation, but the depth is really where it's at. 106 pounds, your champion at 106 was Gary Steen of Reynolds. He knocked off a couple of WPIAL guys. He beats Carter Dybert of Franklin Regional in the semis 3-0, and then he beats Dylan Chappell of Seneca Valley 5-3 in the final. So Chappell finishes in second place. Carter Dybert finishes in third place here in this weight class. Overall, Chappell comes in and knocks off Pacey Naduzak, the number 2 seed. He does beat Kyle Hosserman of Council Rock North by fall, and he was trailing in that match to get to the finals. And then Dybert himself had to beat Hosserman for third and fourth. Overall, though, solid tournament for these two guys from WPIL.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Both these guys, both Dylan and Carter, wrestled their tails off. And this just really shows how good Gary Steen is, because Gary Steen and Dylan were both number 1 in the state in their respective classes. And Gary Steen really looked good throughout this whole weekend, so very impressed with him. But also Dylan and Carter, they're going to be right there with him, especially when you talk about AAA. I mean, Hauserman, he's one of the top guys in the state. So, yeah, these 3 names are going to see quite a few more times.
Well, we have a feeling Chappell and Dybert will be facing off quite a few times here in the upcoming months. But does Hauserman right there as number 3 in the state, or where's he at?
He's going to be right around there. It depends on if we get any more guys to drop from 113. But, yeah, he's going to be right in the mix with those guys.
113 pounds, your champion and outstanding wrestler, Alejandro Herrera from Seneca Valley. He defeats Kurt McHenry of St. Paul's 2-1 in the second tiebreaker to win the Powerade Championship at that weight class at 113 pounds. Also, Finn Sullivan of Franklin Regional finishes in 6th place. Kyle Burkholder of Hempfield finishes in 4th place.
Yeah, and Allie's obviously the story here, and you know what he was able to do. This was definitely a hyped up match between him and Kirk McHenry, and you know he really played it to his advantage. I mean, he kind of, you know, he controlled the match. I mean, Kurt McHenry is a guy who's so fast, he's so quick, and he's just able to get to attack so fast. But Ali really kind of slowed him down and made him wrestle his pace. And as soon as it went into overtime, I'm thinking, well, if they don't get a takedown, Ali's winning this because he's just too good from top. I mean,
he rode McHenry for what, like 40 seconds in the second period?
Yeah, I mean it was a good amount. So I mean, am I surprised? Not really. I think a lot of other people are surprised outside of Pennsylvania because, first he goes to the finals of Ironman, then he finishes as champion of Powerade. People are scratching their heads saying, wow, maybe I undercut Ali. And, I've been saying that for the last 6 months that he wasn't getting enough respect on the national scene, but this just further cements it that he belongs in that national conversation as one of the top guys in the nation and really in the state. I mean, this is a guy who, won a state championship last year in a weight where he necessarily wasn't favored, but he's just done nothing but continue to progress since the offseason. In fact, I interviewed him afterwards, and he talked about going out to Fargo and taking some lumps. He said that was a good thing for him. He went out to Fargo and sort of, took a few beatings, and he said that was good for me. So I think we're seeing it pay dividends down here in 2018-19.
And the guy he had to knock off, Finn Sullivan, he ends up having a great tournament, beat him in the quarterfinals 10-1, and he had that tight match with Jake Rundell, a 2-0 win in the semifinals. He needed 2 back points of his own on a tilt to get him to that point. Burkholder dropped the decision to Rundell. Burkholder and Finn Sullivan wrestled, by the way, in a consolation semis. Burkholder beat Sullivan 4-1, and that's what dropped Finn down to 5th and 6th.
Yeah, and Burkholder really, I thought, wrestled well after taking a loss in the championship round and, beating a hot Finn Sullivan, a guy who was feeling pretty good coming into that tournament. And I mean, he's a dangerous wrestler. And, I think I hyped him up a little bit and people were saying, well, Ali kind of destroyed him. It's, yeah, Ali did what Ali does and he took it to him and he got to his offense. So, I think that just shows you how much space there may be between Ali and the rest of the field in the state. But Finn and Burkholder, those guys are probably going to battle a couple more times here throughout the season.
Finn kept it close for about a period and a half with Herrera, but then Ali obviously able to get out from underneath and then flex his muscles a bit on top to get the extra back points. 120 pounds, your champion was Curtis Phipps of Norwin. He defeats Cameron Enriquez of Strasbourg 6-5 in the final. Ryan Sullivan of Shaler defeats Ian Oswald of Burrow 6-4. Also Cole Hammett of Waynesburg finishing in 6th place in this weight class. Ryan Sullivan, he ended up dropping a semifinal match to one of the stories of Powerade, Cameron Enriquez. He lost to him 7-5, and then Phipps knocks off Enriquez, like I said, 6-5 to win the title. Were you surprised, Enriquez? I mean, I know we talked about Enriquez as being a sleeper, a guy who should place in the top 8, even though he was unseeded. But were you surprised Sullivan dropped that match?
I was, just because he was controlling that match for 5 minutes and 45 seconds of that match. He failed to wrestle throughout the full 6 minutes, in my opinion. I don't think he should have given up the escape and then what ended up being the difference in overtime. So was I surprised? No, because Cameron Enriquez is a really, really tough wrestler and he can scramble with the best of them. And there's a reason why he's a 2-time state medalist. So was I surprised? No. I was proud of Ryan for coming back and taking 3rd because, I mean, a guy who's a returning state champion, wanted to go undefeated in the season, and he just took a heartbreaking loss. He came back and beat some pretty tough guys, including Ian Oswald. So, but the real story here is Curtis Phipps, right? He was the top seed, but a lot of people, including myself, thought, he was maybe 3rd at best. So for him to come out here and just do what he does, and he'll tell you, he had a lot of tough matches. That was not an easy grind for him to come through. He had a lot of tough matches, including Logan Saliga from Bell Vernon, a match I got to see in the auxiliary gym. It was a tough road for him, and for him to come out on top, huge congrats to him.
And speaking of Curtis Phipps, who'll be joining us here momentarily, but to kind of finish up the 120-pound bracket, Oswald of Burrell finishing in 4th place. He had a really great tournament himself, and a lot of upsets that happened throughout this weight class. Bo Bayless was a number 3 seed, and he ends up wrestling for 7th and 8th place in this one. Cole Hammett of Waynesburg coming in unseeded. He ends up finishing in 6th place.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way Cole wrestled, and especially coming in as a freshman, right? I mean, you're coming in, and you're not going to be seeded. In fact, you're obviously, sometimes you're in a really bad position, but he beats Caleb Bacaizo from Thomas Jefferson, loses to Bo Bayless, but then bounces back and knocks off some pretty high quality guys en route to his medal performance. But I was really impressed with the way he wrestled throughout. He beat Amon Ole from St. Joe's Catholic. So, and he even beat Christian Fisher, who's a 2-time state medalist. So, him coming out and getting on the podium, that's huge for him, especially as a freshman.
Well, you mentioned Curtis Phipps, and he's joining us now on the show. Curtis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Curtis, congratulations first and foremost on your Powerade championship, your second. How does the second one compare to the first?
It was just as awesome. It's always a thrill to get those big matches, and come out on top was great.
You got tested several times throughout the tournament. Your first tough match was against Logan Saliga of Bell Vernon in the round of 16, a 2-0 win for you. Talk a little bit about that match and what difficulties you may have had in it.
That match, he was a really big 120, which I expected because he was plus 126. So that was the first kid that I can really say was truly up to my size and height and everything. So that was a good match I needed to get. And he's just really tough to score points on. I had to grind him out and ride him on top and get my 2 when I could.
And talk a little about your semifinal win against Ian Oswald of Burrell.
Me and Ian are really good friends, so we knew kind of what to expect from each other. And I knew I needed a takedown on him because he has really good hips and is tough on top for the most part. So I knew a takedown was really important, and I got that and was able to coach from there pretty good.
How tough is it to wrestle a guy you're very familiar with in Ian Oswald? Is it tough to get your style and get things going when you guys are so familiar with one another?
Yeah. He knows exactly what you're going to go do, and I know what he's going to try and do. So it's kind of whoever could get to their stuff first. And that's why I went out there really aggressive. But when I got the takedown, I knew I felt pretty good, and I was going to keep scoring and trying to break them a little bit. And afterwards, we're still great friends now.
And Curtis, talk a little bit about your growth from over the summer. And I don't mean your physical growth, because obviously you got a lot bigger, but just your growth and your maturity as a wrestler. I think you over the summer you finished second at a lot of tournaments. I think I remember you tweeting out something like finished second at another tournament. You really wanted to get that championship title here at Powerade. How does that feel to sort of get the monkey off your back after finishing second in the state, second at the Ohio Tournament of Champions, and now you finally get that championship title? What's that been like?
Yeah, this summer I thought I was getting used to going up in size with different kids. I was trying to wrestle up, not cut much weight, and it was tough. I got some real good kids and didn't do as well as I thought I could do, but I kept progressing, and we got the new coach in and started working on everything we needed to perfect, and it felt good to finally get a title where I keep moving with confidence from here.
Yeah, and Greg and I were talking about that earlier on the show about having Vince DeAugustine in your corner. What's the difference? What is it like having him in your corner? Because it seems like he's getting the entire Norwin team to kind of wrestle at a different level. Is it some coaches have an impact, some don't. Is that something that is a big deal for you this year?
Yeah, it was really nice getting in a coach like him that knows how to win and knows how to get kids to be their fullest potential. We feel like he came right in and was teaching us some good stuff. Everyone seems to be growing and responding well to what he's teaching, and it's been showing with this big win tonight, and we're going to keep moving with that. It just feels really good to see there's a lot of confidence in all of us.
All right, well, Curtis, you still have a lot to accomplish in this season. I know we talked after the finals, and I wanted to see if you were kind of upset you didn't get a chance to wrestle Ryan Sullivan, because this is a guy who you've seen a lot of, and he's a state champion, but now you kind of take over that number one spot as one of the top guys in the state. What's it going to take for you, Curtis Phipps, to get on top of the podium in Hershey this year?
It's going to take learning how to wrestle in all three positions, which is what I've really been working on. Last year, I was pretty good on top and pretty good in neutral, but that wasn't enough to win. So I've been really stressing bottom, and I know I can still get a lot better at it, but we're going to keep working on that and just keep grinding and trying to learn how to improve my leads in every match. And if I can just keep doing that, I feel like I can get it done.
Do you have an extra motivation to say to your brother, hey, I want a state title, you didn't? Is that ever in the back of your mind?
All the time.
All the time.
We always compete against in everything. So anytime I have a chance to beat them, I want to beat them, because then it's just like bragging rights. So anytime I can do that, I want to. and that's just motivation to keep working. And I want to prove it to everybody, including myself, that I can do it.
Well, he's a little bit bigger than you, so I'm glad you guys aren't like going head to head, toe to toe on the mat. I mean, you are catching up to him a little bit, but still a pretty big weight difference there.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Maybe one day.
I hope so. So we can get a grudge match and prove who's best.
Well, make sure I'm there to see it, because I want to make sure I get that on film. That'll be a lot of fun.
All right, we'll let you know if we ever get to the same size.
Well, Curtis, congratulations on your Powerade championship. We really appreciate you joining us on the podcast, and best of luck as you head through the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Curtis Phipps of Norwin for joining us on the show. Let's go ahead and continue our recap of the Powerade tournament at 126 pounds. Colton Camacho of Franklin Regional finishes in third place. He was upset in the quarterfinals by eventual champion Angelo Rini of St. Edward, Ohio. He had a tough one with Kenny Heyman of Cannon McMillan. He beat him 4-3 at the 2 minutes of overtime in the tiebreaker. Heyman finishing in fourth. He had a great tournament. And then Jared Kessler of Connellsville finishes in seventh place. He beats Jordan Waters of West Allegheny 6-2. Waters in eighth.
Yeah, and you see a lot of WPIAL guys here, especially at 120 and 126. But Colin Camacho, really tough quarterfinals loss that he had to Angelo Rini. A match, again, kind of like we talked about with Sullivan. Excuse me. He dropped a match that he was winning for 5 minutes and 45 seconds. He relaxed, and you heard Coach Levy saying, single leg's coming, and it did. And instead of fighting off the takedown, he ended up trying to funk out of it from standing, which ended up costing him the match. So, I mean, it was an ill-advised move. I think he'll probably say that, but he does bounce back and finish in third. But Kenny Heyman's got to be the story here. Kenny Heyman just grinded out guys, and my gosh, I was concerned maybe him coming from 132 down to 126. Is he sucking too much down? Is he, how is he going to be able to handle that cut? And he just completely destroyed guys. He looked like he could wrestle 60 minutes straight. He just really had a high motor. His gas tank was full throughout all the matches. So very impressed with the way Kenny Heyman wrestled. I mean, to finish fourth at the Powerade and a weight class, including, guys like J.J. Wilson and Colin Camacho, that's a huge accomplishment for him. And same with Jared Kessler from Connellsville, a freshman that was high on our top incoming freshman list. He knocked off a few good guys, including Jordan Waters. And a guy here, Zach Whitmer from St. Joe's Catholic, did not place because Jordan Waters beat him. And Kessler's, he's top 8. That's pretty big for him.
Yeah, you talk about some of the wins that these guys had, and then the losses too. Kenny Heyman, his 2 losses were the champion Rini and in third place Camacho. Both were in overtime. Right.
The Rini match, he was really close to beating him there. So he was almost a finalist. So, he's right there with 2 of the top guys in the nation.
And you look at Kessler, he beats out Jeff Pattison of McGuffey before dropping to Ogun Sanya of Oak Park Forest. But then he comes back and knocks off a couple of quality guys as well. Chan Shear, Trenton Donahue. So he's knocking off big names as well, in addition to Waters for 7th and 8th.
Yeah, very impressed with the way he wrestled. Him and Cole Hammett, definitely 2 freshmen that I was impressed with.
132 pounds. Your champion was from North Hill, Sam Hilligus. He defeats Kiski-Area's Darren Miller. Tight match, 3-2. Miller definitely pushed him. Those guys familiar with one another, though, obviously training at Quest together. Also for the WPIAL, Gabe Willishaw of Latrobe. He finishes in 5th place. He pins Connor Redinger of Quaker Valley for 6th, as Redinger finishes in 6th place. John Altieri of Norwin. He defeats Brian Gall of Burrell 2-0 for 7th and 8th.
Yeah, so Sammy, I got to talk to him a little bit after this finals match, and he wished that it was be a little bit more separation and scoring here, but he said it's really hard to wrestle a friend and someone you're close with, a teammate, essentially in the finals here. And I can't imagine that. I always hated wrestling off one of my good friends in the room and it was always a 2-1 match. It was always overtime match because you train each other, every day. You're friends off the mat. So, but Sammy, he did get the job done. Darren Miller, though, definitely hats off the way he wrestled. He just completely was dominant in some of his wins there, and he just looked explosive. I loved the way he wrestled throughout this tournament. And Gabe Willishaw, my gosh, what's not to say about him? He's as funky as they come. I'm not surprised he pinned Connor Redinger because he's just
Pin him twice.
He could pin anybody. I mean, honestly, he's that kind of wrestler. I mean, you're like, no, don't do that. Okay, it worked out. Go ahead, keep on doing that, right? So, but yeah, good showing by the WPIL here, having 6 guys finish in the top 8. That was pretty big.
Yeah, Willishoe ended up pinning Redinger in the quarterfinals as well as the 5th, 6th place match. But John Altieri of Norwin getting on the podium, as well as Brian Gall of Borough also getting on the podium, 7th and 8th. But in this kind of tournament, that's stellar for those 2 guys.
Oh, for sure. Especially Altieri. You look at some of his results throughout the season. This was a really good performance by him. And you got to say the Norwin guys are wrestling tough with Vince DeAugustine in the corner.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, Altieri beats Kenny Dushek of Freedom. He also knocks off Cody Walsh as well to get that medal. Brian Gall knocks off Sam Glasgow, a guy who really tested Hillegas in the quarterfinals. Hillegas only beat him 4-2. And then Redinger beats Gall in overtime. So those 2 could be going at it quite a few times. Something to watch as we head into the individual postseason. 138 pounds for the WPIAL. Hempfield's tied Linsenbigler, the only one on the podium, a 5th place finish.
Yeah, and I mean, look at that result he had in that 5th place bout. He beat Rocco Bertolo from Reynolds. He teched him 16-1. This is a guy ranked number 1 in the state in AA. I mean, he was 3rd in the state last year, and Linsenbigler just kind of destroyed him, right? I mean, that's saying something right there. Good tournament by him. 38 was a deep weight class. You had some pretty big name guys there: Ed Scott, Kenny Kaiser, Dalton Harkins from Malvern. So really good depth here. But for him to come out and beat Rocco like he did, that's saying something.
One guy who was just a win shy, we've talked about on the show too, Mason Spears, South Franklin Regional. He actually knocked off a number 4 seed in this one by fall, Bo Moeller of Parkersburg. But then he ended up falling to Gavin Cuiosho to just miss out on the medal stand.
Yeah.
145 pounds for the WPIAL, the only one on the medal stand, Nick Coy of Penn Trafford. He ended up finishing in 6th place in this one, falling to John Martin Best for 5th.
And this was one of the deepest weight classes of the tournament. In fact, it had the most nationally ranked wrestlers in it. And this was just a grind of a tournament. Cameron Robinson from Council Rock North was superb. But Coy, I mean, he had a good tournament, finishing 7th in this weight. He finished ahead of Caleb Dowling, who's the number 1 ranked guy in AA. So clearly he's doing well for himself. I'm wondering if he's going to drop to 38. I'm not sure because he looks like he could possibly make it, but 45 was just a deep weight.
Yeah, really for across the nation, that's for sure. Cameron Robinson and Nick Coy did wrestle. Robinson knocked him off in the consolation semifinals. 152, Cam Connor of Kiski finishes in 3rd place. Also, Nick Montalbano of Seneca Valley finishes in 8th. Alex Weber of Thomas Jefferson in 7th. Weber won by medical forfeit in that 7th, 8th place match.
Yeah, Cam Connor continued to impress me. I mean, finishing 3rd here in a weight class that, again, is very deep. Ryan Vulock is a guy who he can't seem to figure out and get past. And Vulock is just, I mean, he can win close matches all day, every day. So that's no surprise that he was able to beat Cam in a tight match, though the score has been tightening and the gap's getting a little closer. But Nick Bonabano, he had a really nice win over Luca Augustine in the Wrestleback, which was a huge win for him, which put him into the medal round matches. And Alex Weber had a great tournament. He beat Bonabano in the earlier on before that medical forfeit. So good showing by those 2.
Yeah, you look at some of the other guys in WPI. You mentioned Luca Augustine. He had a great tournament until that point where he ended up dropping that overtime decision to Montalbano. Alex Weber beat Trent Schulteis of Freedom, and the winner gets a medal scenario, and Weber ends up coming away with the victory. 160 pounds. The WPIL had the 5th, 6th place match. Jack Bloomer of Kiski defeats Ty McGeary this time around 8-2 to finish in 5th. Max Stout of Mount Lebanon finishing in 7th.
Yeah, and that was a huge win for Jack Bloomer to beat Ty McGeary, a guy he has had trouble getting past recently. Lost to him a number of times, including this year. And Jack had a nice win over Max Stout, a guy who I'm obviously very high on. I talked a lot about him. So for the WPIL to get those 3 guys on the podium was very impressive. A guy who missed it, Cole Spencer, state medalist, he missed it. I think this is going to be a fun weight in the postseason. 160s, it's stacked in the WPIL, so they're really going to have to earn these 4 guys that end up going to Hershey.
Yeah, I mentioned you have a guy who could be a state medalist and not come away with anything. Cole Spencer goes 2-2 in this tournament. Some big wins. You talked about Max Stout in the preview show, and he comes away with it. He knocks off number 3 seed Zane Heinzman. He and Bloomer go at it. Bloomer defeated Stout 10-5 in the quarterfinals, and then McGeary and Bloomer both lost to the same guy in Connor O'Neill. 170 pounds. The WPIL's Christian Clutter finishes in second place. This match we could see a couple more times. Jared McGill at Chestnut Ridge is the one that beat him 4-2 in overtime. We could see that as a regional final and a state final potentially coming up between those two. Nick Delp of Kiski finishes in fourth place in this weight class as well.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Christian Clutter. He was one of the guys that impressed me the most throughout this weekend. And that match, I hope we see it again. I hope I see it 10 more times because that was a fun match. They had switch and re-switches about 9 in a row here. You're like, oh, McGill's going to get. Oh, okay, Clutter's going. And it was just back and forth. I had the chance to call some of the matches on the Westmoreland County Sports Network and with Chris Smith and those guys. And it was really fun to call that one because it was just back and forth. And I hope that does happen again. And Clutter really showed that he's a force to reckon with. McGill's definitely one of the top-ranked guys in the nation and state. So for him to push that pace with him was really good. And Nick Delp as well. Nick Delp was... here's a guy who hasn't maybe had that marquee win, that big win in his career. You're like, man, he's really going to be good, but he just finds a way to win all the time. And him taking fourth here over a really deep weight class with Lenny Pinto and Dylan Bennett, that's a good showing for him.
Yeah, Clutter's one of those guys where he is very defensive, doesn't bring out his offense a lot. He's a strong kid, very athletic, also a tremendous football player as well for McGuffey. Very smart as well. So he's got the brain, he's got the athletic ability, but he always plays defense. He wins these close matches, 1-0. He had a 6-2 tiebreaker win in the semifinals. So he likes to kind of play it close to the vest, get his point escape, ride somebody out, and get a close win. McGill's the total opposite. McGill is at your in your face, going at it, trying to score as much as possible. So that's why it was such a fun match because he just went at it, and you finally see Clutter kind of open up and use his offense a little bit in a way and defend, to defend McGill, but also saying, hey, I need to score because this guy's going to put points on me. Yeah,
like I said, that made for a very fun match because McGill forced Clutter to really keep with his pace, and when he did, you're like, man, he can really hang. It's not this tiebreaker match, and it was a very close match for sure.
182 pounds. We saw the match everyone was looking forward to. Carter Starocki, Garrett Ninehouse. Starocki defeats him 5-2. We talked about the top 4 in this weight and then the rest, and that's the case here. Luke Stout of Mount Lebanon. Major decision, Scott Joel Belvernon, 14-3. Also in this weight, Nico Flatty of West Allegheny. He finishes in 7th place. But it was the big 4. Starocki beat Stout in the semi 7-3. Ninehouse beat Joel 6-4. 1, 2, 3, 4, not too surprising. We knew they would be there.
Yeah, not surprised at all. A few things that did surprise me: Luke Stout being able to major Scott Joel in that 3rd place match. That was I was surprised that Scott got majored by that. Garrett Ninehouse was very. He was in that match with Carter. There's no question about that. And he did have a pretty big brace on his leg when he was wrestling. So if this does happen again, which I assume it will, and they're both at full strength, it's going to be a lot of fun, kind of like it was this time. And things got a little chippy afterwards too. That always adds a little excitement to it.
Yeah, it really did. And did you get to talk to either one afterwards?
Yeah, I did actually. I got to talk to both of them a little bit afterwards, and these two just, I don't think, like each other very much. Right. I think it comes down to that. I like it though. Personally, I like it. I think it's good to have this not rivalry, but just this kind of intensity between these two wrestlers. And, you don't want to see it go too far. You don't want to see it become, disrespectful, but it's nice to have a little excitement in wrestling. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
So what are your thoughts on the end of that match? So Starocki's in on a shot. Last seconds come off. He doesn't need the takedown. He's already winning 3-2. But he wrestles the full 6 minutes and goes for the takedown, goes for the hard trip on Ninehouse at the end of the match. Was a cheap shot there. Who knows? But what do you think?
No, I don't think it was a cheap shot. I think it was just. I think it was a really hard-nosed match. I think there was a lot of emotions. There was a lot of things going on in that match, and I think he wanted to send a statement, so to say, and when he went for that takedown on the edge, I mean, he wrestled through it, which is kind of what you teach, but it was just, I think afterwards, it was a little bit of chirping between the two and maybe some pushing and shoving again, that was a buildup of 6 minutes of just pure fighting. Those two fought for 6 minutes, a good fight, but they fought for 6 minutes. I think you just saw that culmination of 6 minutes of at each other's neck, just kind of come to a head. And I think both obviously were chirping a little bit, but I don't think it was anything malicious by either wrestler.
195 pounds, your champion was Max Shaw of Thomas Jefferson. Fourth place, Braden Roskowski of Kiski area. Justin Hart of Hampton finishes in fifth, and Justin Kramer of Hempfield in eighth place.
Yeah, Max Shaw really impressed me here. This is the first time I got to see him this season after finishing third in the state last year, and he did not disappoint. He doesn't look like he's in football shape, that's for sure. He looks solid at 195, up a weight class, and I really was impressed with the way he handled Donovan Ball in the finals here. Braden Roskowski from Kiski, another guy who impressed me. He's only a sophomore. He did well here. Justin Hart, another guy who I thought had a good tournament. Justin Kramer is a guy who kind of snuck on there. I mean, he had a ton of close matches, but he ends up finding a way on to the podium here. And it's nice to see Max Shaw. I'd like to see these guys continue to go at it. Shaw, Roskowski, Hart, and Kramer, and let them fight it out.
Well, you brought up Colby Franklin from St. Joe's in the preview show, and he ended up being stellar, getting in third place. He beat Justin Hart as well as Bryson Miller, but did fall to Max Shaw. But Braden Roskowski did actually drop in the opening round to Justin Kramer of Hempfield, 6'4". So Kramer gets the big win there, and then Roskowski has to battle back, as did Kramer. But I think Roskowski had a fantastic tournament for Kiski area as he routed off 6 wins to go from losing his first match to losing in third and fourth. Yeah,
that was big for him. To take a loss to Kramer early on and then to bounce back. These two have wrestled each other throughout the year. They wrestled the Eastern area. So for him to bounce back and win that many in a row, very impressive. Dorian Crosby also, he lost a match to Gable Krebs and then was able to wrestle back. So good showing at 95.
Well, look at Roskowski's wins too. Bryson Miller, 1-0. Dorian Crosby, 3-2, and that's a number 2 seed and a number 4 seed. So just a heck of a tournament for him to get there. 220 pounds, the WPIL Dom DeLuca of Derry, the only guy to make it out of the first period against Braxton Amos of Parkersburg South. He dropped an 11-2 major decision, but DeLuca finishes in second place. Ryan Weinzen of Norwin finishing in third place, and also Dylan Ferretti of Hempfield in eighth place.
Yeah, Weinsman, that came out of nowhere for me personally. When he finished third, I was like, wow, did I underrate him and underplay him? That was a huge tournament for him. Braxton Amos is probably the best guy in this tournament, no doubt about it. And you saw in that match, he was frustrated he wasn't beating Dom DeLuca by more. Dom DeLuca just looked like, get me out of here as soon as possible. This is no fun. He's complaining because Braxton was kind of pushing him out of bounds and shoving him. You saw his coach Weinel, saying, don't let him do that. Stop letting him do that. And kind of like saying, if you don't want to be hit like that, then stop. Like, you fight back. So, but Dom he was like, I'm not having any parts of this. So it was a good match for Braxton, though. He's so fun to watch, I think, personally.
DeLuca going up to that point, we talk about the dominance of Amos, all the first period falls he had to get to the finals. But DeLuca was pretty dominant, too, in his own right.
He was.
Falls and major decisions to get there.
Yeah, he was, very much so. I think he won, 13-3 in the semifinals. And, he had some really – he was dominating guys. So, yeah, this is obviously a blemish that's not gonna take too much toll on him because it's the number one guy in the nation. But, he'll definitely learn a few things from this match.
He beat Seamus O'Malley 11-0 in that semifinal. Just an incredible performance for DeLuca. 285 pounds, Isaiah Vance of Hempfield finishing in third place. Also, Gio Ramos of Cannon McMillan finishing in eighth place. Nathan Hoagland of Mount Lebanon in fifth.
Yeah, and I thought this was a good tournament by Isaiah Vance, a guy who, has done well for himself thus far as a sophomore, but he's still young, right? We still kind of forget that he's only an underclassman. He was able to get a few good wins, including one over Nathan Hoagland, but Hoagland as well. Thought he was right there with him. Gio Ramos, he snuck in there after losing early round. He comes back, and heavyweights just it's anybody's chance. I think anyone has a shot to make it to the podium, and I think the Whippeal was fortunate to have these guys come away with top 8 finishes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mentioned when we went over 113, Alejandro Herrera finishes as the outstanding wrestler. Do you like that vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
I think he was one of maybe 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, I mean, there was I think so. I mean, you look at the guy who he beat, and that was the big deal. So I'm not mad at it. I mean, I heard rumblings of a lot of people that were upset that he got it.
What other names were they looking at?
I don't know. Braxton Amos, I think, was one of them.
I think it depends how people look at the way they vote. So you have really, I think, 3 different ways. You have one, it's like a prestige award. So if somebody won their 4th title, then usually they get the outstanding wrestler. Is it the most dominant? So basically, if someone pinned their way through like Braxton Amos did to the finals, or is it the guy who won the best match of the night or pulled the biggest upset? So it just depends which person you get the vote. I guess you could say there was no one going up for the prestige award, which, by the way, I hate that they give that as the outstanding wrestler. But other than that, I think it goes to Herrera because I thought Amos was dominant. I don't think if he would have pinned DeLuca in the final, then I would give it to Braxton Amos. But to me, I think Herrera was dominant in his performances up to that point, and then ends up getting the big win over McHenry.
Yeah, I don't get too caught up in the outstanding wrestler vote because people don't take that a little too seriously. I think. I mean, look, 14 champions. You have one guy who maybe stood out from the rest, and you can make an argument for 3 or 4 guys. I get it, but so I don't get too caught up in that.
A couple other big tournaments for the WPIAL from this past holiday weekend, the Southmoreland tournament. And let's break down that one for you. At 106 pounds, Joey Fisher of South Park. He was your champion, wins by a major decision over Luke Gabig of Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, and Joey's going to be a problem here for folks at 106 pounds. And, I really want to see him and Gary Steen go at it. I think, after seeing Gary at Powerade, I give him the edge to Joey Fisher, after seeing him this over the summer in Fargo. He's going to be right there with him, I think. And for him to go out and beat Gabig like he did, that was good. So nice to see him down at 106.
At 113, Noah Nibus of Mount Pleasant. I hope I said that right. He finishes as your champion. Travis Lasco Valley in 3rd.
Yeah, Nibus, again, Mount Pleasant back-to-back, and you're going to see another one at 120. So a lot of young talent here. They just need to fill out the lineup, and they're going to be pretty decent.
Yeah, they were, as far as a team portion goes, I think they brought, 6, 7 guys, and they're finishing 2nd place with 153 points, only 9 points behind the champion Greensburg-Salem. So, yeah, if you could fill out a lineup, they're going to be pretty stellar.
Yeah, I agree.
And that showed at 120 pounds, Noah Teeter of Mount Pleasant, your champion. He also gets a championship by fall. 126 pounds, Jimmy Guire of Mount Pleasant finishing in 4th place. He drops a 15-9 decision to Mount Pleasant's Damian George. Yeah, Damian George and Jimmy Guire, how long have they been wrestling back and forth? It seems like these are 2 names that we're going to see quite often, I think, moving forward. 132, the highest Whippeal place winner, Nate McMaster of Butler. He finishes in 3rd place. 138 pounds. You had a champion, DeJuan Herzog from Greensburg-Salem. He ends up winning it. Donovan Chambers of Elwood City finishes in 3rd. Yeah, I thought Herzog wrestled tough, and he's a guy who's a little bit under the radar, I think, in the Whippeal at 138. But, 138 is a little bit more wide open. Lenzenbigler comes down, but I think it opens up a little bit more, and I think Herzog's a guy who can make some noise. 145, Shane Kemper of Burgestown, your champion. He beats a Jay Cooper of Southside, 6'5", in the finals. 152 pounds, Ian Ewing of Greensburg-Salem. He drops a tough one in the finals to Alec Supanik of North Star, 7'5" in overtime. Grant Walnoa of Upper St. Clair in the same weight class finishes in 3rd over Anthony Navarra of Southside. Yeah, and Ewing had a tough one there in the finals with Supanik, and I think he's another one, kind of like DeJuan Herzog is a guy who I think is a little bit more on the radar, but is a guy who can pressure some of these top-ranked guys here. And you look at Grant Winall. These guys are pretty tough in their own right. So 52 was a weight class I was excited to see how everything turned out. 160, Jack Cottespot of Butler. He was your champion. He beats Hunter Milligan of Albert Gallatin 8-5. 170, Cooper Baxter of Butler. He was your champion, finishing in first place. 182, Dayton Pitzer of Mount Pleasant, a champion. He defeats Austin Wally of Elwood City 9-6 in the finals.
And Pitzer just keeps on impressing me. Man, he just, week after week, he's just doing things that you don't expect a freshman up at that weight at 182 pounds to do. But he beats a really tough Austin Wally from Elwood City, as you said, 9-6. And, this is only a freshman. That's incredible that he's able to do these things that he is. Really looking forward to seeing how he does as the season goes on, especially in the postseason.
195 pounds. Your champion was Luke Montgomery of Bethel Park. He beats Hunter Tremaine of North Star 5-0 in the finals. The big story here, opening round, he wrestles Dominic Fundy, a best center, and beats him 10-5.
I mean, I had people blowing up my phone saying, what Luke Montgomery, who is he? Where'd he come from? It's like, well, he's a Surge champion. He came to the Surge and won the hammer here. He's a solid wrestler. His record last year wouldn't indicate it, but I mean, his younger brother, Jason Montgomery, if you remember him from Bethel Park, state medalist. And, Luke has just really shown that, hey, he belongs in that conversation as one of the top guys in the WPIL, knocking off a very well-renowned Dom Fundy and Hunter Tremaine from North Star, and he beat him pretty good, 10-5 and 5-0. So you're talking about a guy who's went from almost barely a 500 record last year to now he's going to be top 10, top 7 in the state.
Yeah, two guys in Double-A who are solid, knocking those guys off, as well as Harvey Roch of Upper St. Clair beating him in the semifinals as well. Roch finished in third place. 220, Trent Patrick of Greensburg-Salem, your champion. He wins by fall over Jacob Baker of Best Center in the final. And 285, Jake Slinger of Upper St. Clair. He continues his run as he finishes in first place. Dave Schufert of Valley finished in third, a 4-0 win over Riley Kemper of Burgestown.
Yeah, and the Slinger, I mean, we call him the Gunslinger now. He's really fun to watch, and my gosh, I mean, he pinned Jalen Stevens, who beat Dave Schufert. So Slinger's a guy who I really cannot wait to see compete on the state level with guys like Michael Wolfgram, Quan DeBow, those guys. He's a guy who I think could win a state medal.
The other tournament, the Steve DiAgostino tournament at West Mifflin. Any notable results that you noticed there, Jeff, from the tournament?
There was a few matches that kind of struck me. Daniel Yesick from Ambridge won over Brady Earhart 2-0 in the finals. Joe Moetti from Brashear got a championship win 18-13 in the finals over Noah Hunnell from Elizabeth Ford. But I mean, again, you look at some of the weights and it's kind of comparable to some of the other ones where you say some are really strong, some are not so strong. I thought Jake Richardson from Mars wrestled tough. He beat Colin Jezero and he pinned him in less than 40 seconds. Again, Mars are some of the guys that we don't see a whole often. So it's nice to see them go against some competition that they may not necessarily see. But overall, I mean, yeah, it definitely had some bright spots, but other spots where you're like, it's still a good tournament.
Yeah, and you have guys like Justin Perkins you don't get to see too often from Penn Hills. He's got a lot of injury issues over the last couple of years, but he's at 132 pounds. If he can stay healthy, he can be a force to be reckoned with. I agree with you. It's just a matter of keeping him on the mat. I mean, he's had his issues staying healthy and staying on the mat. So, I mean, he's a guy, I remember when he was a youth wrestler, Justin Perkins, winning PJW titles. And, he's a guy who has a ton of talent and is more than capable of doing well. He just needs to put together a full season. And you clearly look what he did to Tony Salopek in the finals. He beat him 16-1. So clearly he has the capability. It's just a matter of staying healthy. And yes, he could be a force. As far as this upcoming weekend's wrestling action in the tournaments, we also have, in addition to the tournaments, we have the matches going on here this week, which we'll recap for you coming up next week. But the tournaments coming up this weekend, you have the MAC tournament, which will be at Freedom, which is basically like the Beaver County tournament. You have the Westmoreland County tournament, which is almost like a regional type showing. And you have the Tri-County, which has Washington Green and Fayette all together. So that's at Trinity. Westmoreland County's at Norwin. You also have the Tool City tournament at Meadville and the Indiana Bow Wood tournament coming up. So a lot of wrestling action coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's that time of the year where you start really seeing where guys are at and where they fit in. And, the cream sort of rises to the top here. And it's going to be fun to watch and see where everyone kind of plays out, especially with weights, too, because we saw a lot of guys dropping weights like we always do. But seeing how they handle that weight cut and how they stack up with some other names. So these rankings, man, that it's easier, but it gets a little bit harder when you mix guys up in different weights.
So how much do they change after the holiday tournaments?
A lot. They change. This is the most significant change, and this is every year. Every year, this is the between these 2 weeks, depending on when you start the week or whenever you say the preseason rankings as opposed to week 1 rankings. This is always the week rankings where there's always going to be a ton of changes, and this year is no different. There's going to be a lot of changes in weights and in rankings.
So we'll be seeing those updates. We'll also have just continued stories coming on through PA Power. Make sure you stay with us and check in our site daily because we're going to have a lot of updates for you.
Absolutely. And we have people, we got following along the Southern Scuffle, Midlands, and, college wrestling is in full swing right now, and high school wrestling not far behind. We got the counties, as you said. It'll be a lot of fun to see how everything pans out the next couple of weeks here. And before you know it, we're going to be going into the team postseason, Greg. Yeah. It's crazy to think, but it's almost that time.
Yeah, this week is week 3 of the subsection action. There's only 5 weeks in subsection before we get to the section, the championships, and then the WPIAL tournament. So
wow, that's crazy to think. I feel like the season just started.
We're pretty much halfway through the team portion if you look at it.
Sure, yeah.
So it's still got a lot of wrestling still to come, but make sure you do stay with us throughout the entire season. PA Power Wrestling, we have it all for you. And make sure you check us out on Twitter as well, Jeffrey.
Yep, at PA Power Wrestle, PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. If you want it, we got it.
And also, make sure you check out our store as well. We didn't get a chance to sell a lot at the Powerade tournament, so let's make sure you go ahead and check us out and get your shirts, your sweatshirts, because guess what's coming up? The postseason, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure you have your PA Power gear before you get to the postseason.
Yeah, and we actually have a special product we're going to be releasing here in a few weeks. I'm really excited to just announce it and to show it out when we do get it. But let me just put it this way. It has something to do with what's coming here in Pittsburgh in a few months.
Can't wait. No other hints? Is that it?
That's it. You should be able to figure it out.
Sounds great. Want to again thank Curtis Phipps and Norton for joining us on the show. From a broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to War Up on a WPIL.